Welcome to the Vault Archons. I am the Keeper of Keys, Kraz, and today we are going to be looking at the Uncertainly Flowing Lagash. So this is another deck that I'm going to be opening for you guys, and I am excited to see what we've got in here, so let's check it out. Now one thing I can say is you can look at the deck lists on a lot of these cards and just be like, oh yeah, it has those cards in it, but it's a much different experience when you open the decks because there's a sense of what's in the deck until you open it, and then once you open it and you actually get to look through the cards, you really get a strong sense of what's actually in the deck. It gives you a much stronger feeling of the cards. You get to hold them, you get to put them together, you get to kind of check them out in the way that you really would want to. The first card we're looking at here is from House Sanctum. Whoops, off we go. Is from House Sanctum. This is a really nice card to have. I like this creature. It's considerably powerful. This is VMOS Lightbringer. This is a great card to clear off elusive. Very, very powerful against shadows. A shadows deck does not want to see this in your deck. Next, we're going to look at the Raiding Knight. This is a nice one because when you play him, you capture one. Capture is not a permanent mechanic, but this can be used to prevent them from forging a key. So it is a good one. It's got strong armor and a decent power. Should be relatively hard for them to clear. I really like Champion Ampiel. Because of his taunt ability, he's a strong card and has some armor. Not going to be easy for them to clear, and so he's a great card. The Whispering Reliquary. I do like this card. Basically, you can keep one of their artifacts off the board indefinitely with this as long as you declare House Sanctum. If they have something on the board that's an artifact you don't like, Whispering Reliquary is going to get rid of it for you. It is a fantastic card to be able to clear artifacts off the board. Hallowed Blaster, not one of my favorite cards from House Sanctum, but it is a healing card, and so it does synergize well with Sanctum cards. You really can keep your Sanctum creatures highly healed. Now, that could be a disadvantage against cards, say, like Coward's End, which clears off all undamaged creatures. But still, nice to have healing. There's 2, 3 of those inside this deck. If you're somebody who likes the healing mechanic, there's a lot of them in this deck. Like I said, I personally am not a huge fan, but once you get those on the board, you have a tremendous amount of healing. Your creatures are pretty much all going to remain uninjured. Terms of Redress. Now, this actually works pretty good with the Hallowed Blaster because your creatures are going to be just insanely hard to clear unless they use a card that specifically wipes your board, and most cards that wipe your board will also wipe their board. So I do like Terms of Redress. You gain an amber, and you can stop them from forging a key, and there are 2, 3 of these in this deck. That can be incredibly good. Yet again, another healing card. This healing card, I really like this healing card. Now, the reason I like this healing card is because you're gaining an amber for every damage that you heal off, and that includes your opponent's board. If they have 4 creatures, you have 4 creatures, everything's damaged, you heal it 8 amber. Huge amber gain on this card. Just incredible potential. Next is Blinding Light. I like this card. It's a great board stun for your opponent for a house that they're potentially dominating the board. This would be great used against houses like Brobnar or Dis, or really anything that you're currently having trouble with. I do like this card. Now we're going to go into House Logos. Rocket Boots, I like this upgrade. It is one of the upgrades that I like more than most of the other ones because this allows you to use a card twice. There are a lot of cards with use abilities that using twice would just be incredibly powerful. And so I hope that this synergizes well with some of the creatures in this deck. Next we have Mother. I like this card because it's a card advantage. It's a strength 5, so it's a little bit hard to clear for your opponent, and you get one additional card into your hand. So great to have more cards. Next we have the Ganymede Archivist. This works on the archive mechanic, so I really like this. Putting the rocket boots on this guy would basically allow you to rapidly archive your hand and build a very powerful turn. This guy, if you can keep him on the board, is going to be really bad for your opponent. After that, we have Dexter, another capture mechanic. And this guy, basically, your opponent can't get rid of him without Purge if you don't want him to. So, very, very nice card to have. Great capture, to have a capture mechanic, and he's essentially immortal, or as close as you get to it in this game. After that, we have the Library of Babel. I like this card. It is a good one to have. It gives you card advantage. It's an artifact. You can use it over and over again. Great card. After that, we have the Anomaly Exploiter. This is also a good artifact to have. You only have to do 1 damage to a creature to be able to clear it off using the Anomaly Exploiter. So, good card to have in your deck. Twin Bolt Emissions. This one you're going to gain an Amber for, and it's going to do 2 damage to 2 creatures, so it's a good card to have. Not one of my favorites, but also not what I would consider a weak card. It's not a bad card. It can synergize well with other things, and you've got 2 of them in this deck, so nice damage output on those. Next, we have Sloppy Lab Work. I really like this one because it not only not only is it a archive mechanic, but it's also an Amber gain. Although you do have to discard a card. So, but that could work towards your advantage, allowing you to draw more cards to cycle your deck to find what you're looking for. This is really take 2 cards out of your hand, allows you to draw 2 more cards at the end of your turn. This is a very good card, and you get an Amber for it. So, great to have. Phase Shift. Now, this is a very powerful card. I don't know if many people have realized it yet, but Phase Shift is going to allow you to play cards outside of your house. This can allow for some very crazy combinations because normally you cannot play cards outside of your house. This card has the potential to be incredibly powerful. I don't know, without looking back through the deck, how well it's going to synergize, what kind of crazy combinations it will allow. But it can allow some really crazy stuff if you have the right cards. Fogify. I like this card. It is something that's going to keep your opponent from fighting against you on their next turn. They can do other things, but it does shut down one of their capabilities. And anything that shuts down your opponent's options is a good card. And you're going to gain 1 Amber on it. So next we have Effervescent Principle. This is a fantastic card. This allows you to stop your opponent from forging a key. Great to have in the deck. Now, of course, you're going to lose Amber in the process, but if played properly, this really is going to be a heavy swing card into your advantage. Next, we're going to go into House Dis, the Terror. This is a good card, like I've said before. This is a good card to have on a first turn play, because you're going to gain 2 Amber, and 2 Amber for a single card at the beginning of the game that's strength 5 is just a good play. Stealer of Souls. Now this guy right here is a nice card to have because he does 2 things that really work towards your advantage. One, he's strong, so and it's not a fight mechanic, so it is going to happen whether he dies or not, because this is not a fight mechanic. So either way, you're purging their creature and you're gaining 1. You could use this to get rid of something you absolutely don't want to see again, and they're not going to be able to bring it back through many of the different ways that cards can be brought back onto the board. So I like the Stealer of Souls. Guardian Demon. This guy is also, yet again, more heal mechanic in this deck. And he's also dealing damage. So and he does it when you play him, fight, and reap. This is a good card. He is going to output a considerable amount of damage without ever having to attack, as well as outputting a considerable amount of healing. Good card. Next we have the Ember Imp. This is a card your opponent is absolutely going to want to clear off your board. They can't play more than 2 cards. So they don't clear this, they can't play more than 2 cards. Fantastic card. Your opponents are not going to like it. Lash of Broken Dreams. This is a good card because this is basically a key stopper. Unless they have just an absolutely tremendous amount of amber, at which point you have other ways of dealing with huge amber boards. But this one right here is a key stopper, and it's an artifact, so it just stays on the board. Red Hot Armor. This is really the anti-sanctum card in Keyforge, because this is going to make all the enemy creatures lose their armor, and it is going to deal 1 for each point of armor that they have, and you're going to gain an amber. So even if they don't have Sanctum, even if they don't have armor, you are gaining an amber. But this is an especially powerful card if you're talking about facing Sanctum with it. So great card versus Sanctum, otherwise it's basically an amber. Poltergeist. This is also a really nice one to have because it does 2 different things. One allows you to use their artifact so you can get the use out of it, gives you an amber, and then it also destroys their artifact, so they're no longer going to get to use it. Nice card to have. Going to be a big problem for your opponent if they rely on artifacts. Mind Barb. This is a amber gain card and a card discard on their behalf. This is a card advantage. Card advantage is always good. I like card advantage. Nice card to have. Key Hammer. This is yet another one that is just going to synergize incredibly well with the Lash of Broken Dreams. If you have the Lash of Broken Dreams out, you've made them pay 9 for their key, then you key hammer it, they get 6 back, they still have to pay 9 to do it again their next turn. You're really just making life painful on them, slowing down their progress. Great combination, great card to have. Hand to Disc. This is a fantastic single card wipe. Now, it isn't going to work if there's only 1 card on the board or 2 cards on the board, but as soon as they have more than that, you're wiping off something that isn't on their flanks, which can be quite useful, although it does have limitations. Next, we have Control the Weak. This is a fantastic card. Very, very difficult for your opponent. Control the Weak is going to make life very hard on your opponent because you're going to pick their house for them. They don't get to decide. You get to decide. You're getting ready to forge a key, and you don't want them to declare a specific house because it has a lot of the ability to manipulate amber. For example, I don't want them to declare shadows. Pick something else, make them declare that. Increase your odds of being able to forge your key. I like this card. It's fantastic, very powerful. Arise. Arise is one of those cards that is just incredibly powerful. I like Arise. With this deck, it is a decent card. It is not what I would consider the most powerful of cards because this deck lacks a large creature pool. So you're not going to be bringing back more than probably 3 or 4 creatures with this, but still a great card to have. It turns a deck that doesn't have a lot of creatures into a deck that actually has a good pool of creatures to pull from. So it really kind of offsets the weakness of not having a large creature pool to pull from. That is that deck, and I do really like it. It has some fantastic cards, some great combinations. Has all the things that you need to have a successful deck. I would say that it is missing Forge a Key outside your key step, which most decks are missing. So it's very rare that you're going to find a deck that contains Archive, Board Clear, Amber Manipulation, and Keyforge, and Keyforging outside your Keyforge step. So I wanted to come back and make a few comments about this deck after looking back through it. It is a good deck. It's a strong deck. I do think that the 3 Howling Blasters in this deck kind of weaken it relative to its other capabilities because of the fact it just doesn't have a lot of Sanctum creatures or just a lot of big creatures in it to take advantage of the Howling Blaster. And there's other healing in here, so just wanted to point that out. I still like the deck. It just has... it would do better with some other cards. So there you go.